Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you recall, my name is Alice Lisak from the firm Jones Day, representing the defendant. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to emphasize the significant job you hold today. A devoted and caring teacher's career, and possibly life, is in your hands. Dalton Fisher's position at the Smithfield School District is at stake, a district that he grew up in and now has the privilege of teaching at. Ladies and gentlemen, what happens to the plaintiff is an extremely unfortunate accident. However, that does not change the fact that Pat's decision was an extremely bad one. Pat and Avery had a plethora of options for food on the night of September 27th. As you heard from Casey Damon's testimony, food was available for kids at every new location they visited. As you see, in Joint Exhibit 5, Pat and Avery's hotel room is located among the premise of the Smithfield student rooms. The vending machines are located across from their hotels. Avery Harris testified that Pat walked to Dalton Fisher's room, 837, meaning that Pat must have walked to and from Dalton Fisher's room, meaning that he passed by a food source twice and once when he was leaving the hotel. However, Pat still felt compelled to leave the hotel and disobey orders. Members of the jury, when Pat and Avery reached outside at approximately 12 a.m., they made numerous mistakes. As you see, in Joint Exhibit 3, Pat and Avery left from the side entrance of the hotel. Hot Dog Heaven is located just around the corner. However, Pat still believed that there was another restaurant a few blocks away. As we know from hearing the case, this restaurant was non-existent, and the expected location is just a block away from two more open restaurants. At this time, Pat decides to take a selfie with a billboard. As noted from the case, Pat's selfie eventually leads to severe head injuries. These damages were self-induced. No one made Pat climb a wall and photograph himself. Please turn your eyes again to Joint Exhibit 3. The location of the accident is not unusual. It was only a block away from Metropolitan University's dorm rooms, where parties are frequently held. You will recall that Avery Harris, one of the plaintiff's witnesses, himself testified his cousin was a member of the fraternity at the university. Avery Harris's birthday is September 27th, the same day as the accident. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not a coincidence that they were 2 blocks away from the dorms with a direct connection to the frats and on Avery Harris's birthday. However, Pat and Avery never did make it to this party because of Pat's selfie. The plaintiff will argue that as a result of Dalton Fisher's absence when Pat and Avery knocked on his door, damages arose. They will argue that Dalton Fisher was at the Star Wars premiere. However, you heard Fisher's testimony. She plans to see the movie the next day like a responsible adult. Ms. Fisher, furthermore, you cannot expect someone to immediately open the door at first knock. Ms. Fisher could have easily been in the bathroom, taking a shower, or even asleep. Please give her a chance to answer at least. As the judge will explain to you, the law permits an inference of no negligence by a school district, its teachers, and school personnel. As I said in the beginning of the trial, this is known as a safe harbor. If this case is considered a safe harbor, there will be no liability for the school district and its teachers. In order to gain this inference, we must establish 5 components. The first component is that the school must have adopted and complied with reasonable supervision policy. Ladies and gentlemen, as you heard from Jameson Manning, we did in fact comply with the supervision policy as we had a 1 to 20 student-to-teacher ratio, the policy made by the hotel. Although we did not follow the school supervision policy, this was extremely reasonable. Despite the fact that Jameson Manning discussed the issue with numerous people, the field trip was located in the hotel, not the school. Thus, it is reasonable to follow only the hotel's policy. The second element is to establish adequate training. Once again, you heard the case. You heard the training that Dalton Fisher received. Not only was Fisher trained by a trusted employee, Dana Hughes, but he also spoke with the superintendent and expert, Jameson Manning. The third action the school must have completed is an adequate notice on policy and how it will be implemented. Now, obviously the policies were written in the permission slip and signed by all parents, but there was also a parent-teacher conference held to go all over these policies, and the students reminded them on the bus. Moreover, the school must have complied with reasonable parent requests. As you heard in the case, Jameson Manning took Peyton Reynolds' call very seriously and fulfilled Peyton's request to not cancel the trip. Lastly, was the policy followed in this case? Dalton Fisher protected these kids to the best of her ability. She attended the conference as a student and now had the experience and now was very excited to experience it as a chaperone. Dalton Fisher followed the policy of the school, including curfew checks. Although the plaintiff will argue that the second check was incomplete, Fisher followed Dana Hughes' prior technique, which worked for many years. Thus, it is very reasonable under the circumstance. Ladies and gentlemen, even if you believe that we do not meet the elements in order to gain an inference of safe harbor, it does not mean that the Smithville School District and Dalton Fisher are negligent. In order for the plaintiff to establish negligence, they must show that there was a duty, a breach of the duty, that that breach was the proximate cause of the injury, and damages arising from the breach. As the judge will explain to you, the plaintiff bears a burden of proof, meaning it must be more likely than not for us to be negligent. However, the plaintiff will not be able to meet that burden. As I said in the beginning, Dalton Fisher did not establish a breach, nor was she the proximate cause of Peyton Reynolds' damages. While Dalton Fisher did nothing wrong, and thus there is a finding of no liability, the judge will explain to you that you will be able to assess liability to both parties under the comparative negligence doctrine. Ladies and gentlemen, the plaintiff relies on a paid expert to suggest that Dalton Fisher and the school was negligent. How can we rely on Mr. Fisher's opinion when during his tenure as principal, children were dropped off at the wrong location or even abandoned? Bailey Thompson blames the bus drivers for not properly following the procedure. In this case, Pat also did not follow procedure. Members of the jury, it is natural for us as people to feel sympathy for those who are injured. But the law requires us to evaluate the facts objectively. Moreover, everyone must take responsibility for their own actions. Unfortunately, in this case, the responsibility for the tragic accident falls on the plaintiff. It was their actions, not the defendant's conduct, that caused this tragedy. To hold my client responsible here would only further compound this tragedy. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. It is a very important duty you hold, and I ask you to return a verdict in favor of the defense.
Okay, all right, thanks.